Hi everyone, it's Allie. Welcome to the Team Tiny Summer Florals Hop. We are featuring summer quarter designs, and I have 4 digital downloads of flowers that she drew, and I decided to work with all of them. And I did hopefully a bit different projects for each one just to give you multiple ways to use these images. So I did print these out on my LaserJet printer, and this one I printed out on Copic friendly paper, and I used my Altenew alcohol markers to color. I love to use a ton of floral stamps. It's kind of nice. I bought them in the boxes that actually come specifically with shades that work together. So I really enjoy that because I know what the markers are going to do together, how they're going to blend. And I was very, very happy with the results. So these, I believe, are a type of rose. And you will have to forgive me. I do not have a green thumb at all. So most of the time I don't know what flowers are. I have to look them up. But when I looked at this type of flower, I don't know, I just had an idea in my mind of how I wanted to color it. It's probably not how the actual flower is colored, but we are crafters and I think it's fun to see all the different ways someone may color these type of flowers. So I kind of went along the lines of where she put in where the highlights should be, which I love when you have floral stamps because it really helps to know where those shaded areas should be. And so here, everywhere where the petals overlap is going to be shaded darker. See where that one petal is like underneath. And I decided to shade darker towards the middle of the flower and then also on the ends of the flower, and I wanted my highlight in the middle. Whether it should have been that way or not, I'm not sure. Sometimes I have a really easy time deciding where the light and dark should go, and sometimes I have a harder time. But with these, I actually just like had fun coloring, and I just kind of went with what I was feeling at the moment. So this one was fairly simple. I just colored the flowers. I did not cut them out. I used this as my panel, and then I stamped a sentiment on it, and that was my card. So I really, really had fun. I loved how this came out. The colors worked so well together, and I was laughing because when we were given the thumbnail, it sort of looked like the same colors that I used. So it kind of went with it, so I was happy about that. So I didn't show much of the second flower just because I colored both of them the exact same way. I did color the middle yellow. I just filled it all in, and then I took a little bit darker of a yellow and just tried to put in some highlight areas. The only part of this that I found a little bit difficult was the leaves. I didn't like how I initially tried to color those, but I ended up just adding in more highlights and they didn't come out to be too bad. So they looked good in the end and I was happy with it. So here I am just putting in a very, very light blue highlight around my image. That way it's going to make the image pop. Since it is only a 1-layer card, I just wanted to spruce it up a little bit. When I do this, I will usually use the darkest color next to the image, and then I will blend it out with a lighter color. And then if I feel like the line is too harsh, I will go in with my colorless blender and then blend that out just a little farther away from the flower so it looks like it's all blended nicely. So, and I did have some some ink get away from me there. It's very hard to color with reds or, you know, like dark corals because they do tend to bleed. So I wanted to just fix some of that up. And here I was using the colorless blender, and I tried to show you the flower, but I was off of the screen. So one of the sentiments I used, I did find in one of my Altenew sets. Unfortunately, I did not write that down. This flower I actually colored a while ago when it was first given to me. And then the next couple projects I did just recently. So I like to get things done ahead of time, but then when I go to film the video, it's not, I don't remember all of everything I used. So I'm trying to be better about writing all of it down. So there I used my Nuvo glitter gloss marker, and there you have my card. Now my next one is a mixed media project, and I just grabbed out a very old book I had, and I grabbed out one of my glue sticks, which I glue a couple of the pages together. So I glued 3 pages together on each side. It's going to be a 2-page layout. And when you do that, it just makes your pages thicker and you have a nicer base to work with. So I'm going to put paper beneath my page so I don't get it all over my book. And then I'm going to put a good layer of some heavy gesso on there. So I liked the words underneath, so I necessarily didn't want to cover all of those. So I did just do one heavy layer so you can see some of the words still underneath there. And then I put some water on the pages, and I used my Vicky Bouton crayons there. Her crayons are wonderful. They're great. They're creamy. I have Faber-Castell ones as well. Those work really well. Any of them, you can use the Distress crayons. Any of them should work the same. I just picked out a few colors that I liked. And because I'm an impatient crafter, I did dry it all. Now you can let it sit, because when you do dry it, you are pushing that ink around depending on how much water you have on the paper. So you may get a little bit different of a look, or depending on the type of journal you're using, you can get some curling on the edges. Now, this was an old book that I was given by we have a little bookstore in our town that sells used books. Sometimes she has new ones, but it's generally just older or used books. And sometimes she will put a bunch of books in the basement that are either falling apart or she just can't sell. And the one day I was in there, she gave me a bunch of them to take home and kind of play with. And this is one of them that I thought was kind of a cool book. It's like a favorite poems book, and it always gets me when the covers are kind of cool looking. And I don't know, I'm a reader, so I cannot get used to the Kindle or anything like that. I want to have a book and I want to hold it, and I like old books. So you don't have to just mix media in actual art journals. You can use old books. You can use magazines, you can use pieces of cardboard, you can use more of like a coffee table style book. And I think that's a really, really fun idea, because you can put these books on your coffee tables or on your shelves, and if someone decides to look through them, they'll actually see some of your artwork and you can save them. And for people who like to read or like old books, I think that's kind of neat. I don't feel like I'm ruining the book. This old poem book, I'm not really gonna read that. So I really like putting some of my art in there. It's just fun. So if you haven't tried that idea, I would suggest it. And so there you just saw me with some Altenew embossing paste. I used a Colorful Life Designs stencil, and let me see, it was called, I'm looking, and I don't know if I wrote that down. But it was, I think it was like Gothic Florals. I'll have it in my description box below, all the stuff. But so then I did flick on some purples and white. I just took my crayons and I added some water to them off on the side, and then I just flicked those on. I grabbed one of my tapes and I added that in different places. Sometimes I like adding some of the washi tape in there, and I'm just kind of deciding where I really wanted my flowers. And of course, you know my kitty by now would not move. That poor kitty, I think, has paint and stuff on him more times than none. That I'm always trying to wash off his paws and everything else. So I used my matte gel medium to glue those flowers on. And that sparkly embossing powder that I used was one of Tonic's that Catherine Pooler put together. And again, I'll have the names all in the description box below. So while I'm doing this, I just want to talk about the prizes, because there are going to be 2 winners. And you will be able to choose 2 of the digital images for free. And you can comment here. And then if you want to also comment on Instagram, you will get a double entry. So I will have Summer Quarter's Instagram information down in the description, along with her Etsy store. And here I'm just using one of my distress markers, and I'm adding in some navy blue. And see, you can just put it in the areas you want and use your finger. You can use a sponge. It just adds some extra color and dimension. I did use a black pen to outline some of those words, and that is from a Tim Holtz pack that I use. I did as well, I'm going to go around some of the flowers and darken up some of those lines. In my art journals, I usually like to add some inspiring words. I do like to use different mediums, so I will use colored pencils, and I have all different pens. I have been getting into learning how to hand letter, so now I even have more different kinds of pens to play with. And so I was just kind of playing here, seeing what worked and what didn't, and what I can come up with. So I was seeing what pens would blend more and what wouldn't. But, you know, like I said, as long as you put that layer of gesso down, everything should work pretty well on blending and letting your paints and mediums move around the page. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just adding in some extra details, and then I will be finished with this project. So I hope you like it. Let me know if you enjoy watching the mixed media, if you like art journals, if you do any of that yourself. And let me know what you art journal in. Do you use a regular notebook? Or do you think outside of the box and use other things? So there it is. And for my third and final project, daisies, I wanted a card that looked fresh and clean and more classic, so I just pulled out my gold decofoil. For mine, that if I put it through 3 or 4 times, I get a much better image than if I just try to put it through once or twice. So I really like it, though. I'm working with it. I've been adding different shims to some of the different images I'm trying to foil to see what is the best way to use it. So then I decided to pull out my Pink Fresh Pretty Frames 2 die, and I used every frame on there except the last middle piece, and I glued those straight on my card base with my Brutus Monroe glue. I did use just a piece of the Nina 110-pound paper, and it was very easy to glue all those in place there. And off screen, I cut out my image. I wanted it to go to the end of the card, and I'm just going to glue that as well with some of that Brutus Monroe glue. And then I'm going to add a few embellishments. I believe they were from an old Scrap and For Less kit. I did cut out the word smile. It's a Gemini die from a friend of mine, and that was my card. So please check my description box below. You will find all the information for the giveaway and the artist's information. Please leave a comment if you would like to win 2 of those digital images. Leave a comment on her Instagram for that double entry.